So this is part 2 of our Unit 5 on plant physiology, and this is Chapter 39, Plant Responses to Internal and External Signals. So first of all, plants receive signals from their environment or also from within, and they respond by altering their growth and development. And the example given by your book is of a daughter seedling, which will bend toward a host plant in response to chemicals released by that host. So this is the host plant shown here, and then this is the daughter plant here, and you can see how it ends up wrapping around this plant. Any response that results in a curvature of organs of a plant toward or away from a stimulus is known as a tropism. Some of the work that was first done in this area was by Charles Darwin and his son Francis in the late 1800s. They conducted experiments on phototropism, which is a plant's response to light. The Darwins observed that a grass seedling could bend toward light only if the tip of the coleoptile was present. The coleoptile you can see here is this protective covering over the tip of a growing plant or developing plant. So they hypothesized that a signal was being transmitted from the tip to the area that caused elongation. A few years later, Peter Boyce and Jensen demonstrated that the signal that was making this occur was a mobile chemical substance. This is an illustration that shows their work and how they experimented to make these discoveries. So tropism, again, is a movement away from or toward a stimulus. So a plant can grow in response to hormones that act as a signal to cause that growth. And a definition of a hormone, again, is a chemical messenger that coordinates the different parts of a multicellular organism. And they're used both in plants and in animals. There are several types of tropisms. These are just a few examples. Phototropism is growth away or toward light. Gravitropism is growth toward or away from a gravitational source. On Earth, that's obviously going to be the Earth's magnetism and gravity. Thigmotropism is growth toward or away from a touch, which a lot of plants exhibit. There can be both positive and negative tropism. Positive tropism is growth toward a stimulus. Like positive phototropism is growth toward light. Positive gravitropism is growth toward a gravitational source. Positive thigmotropism is growth towards a tactile stimulus. Whereas negative tropism is growth away from that stimulus. So signal transduction pathways are what link signal reception to responses. So this is a review of what we learned about in cell communication. So chapter 39.1 talks about this as it relates to plant physiology. The example they have here is a potato that's left growing in darkness, produces unhealthy looking shoots and lacks elongated roots. So with this potato, morphologic adaptation for growing in darkness is called etiolation. After exposure to light, a potato can undergo changes called de-etiolation, in which the shoots and roots will now grow normally. So this is an example of response to light as an example of cell signal processing, where we have reception, transduction, and response, just as in any other cell signal transduction pathway. So the receptor is required in the cell the relay proteins and second messengers involved in transduction, and then the activation of a cellular response as the response portion of this processing. So internal and external signals are detected by receptors, which are proteins that change in response to specific stimuli. In de-ethylation, the receptor is a cytochrome, which is capable of detecting light, so that light is the stimulus that is going to cause the change in that protein. That de-ethylation activates enzymes that function in photosynthesis directly, and they supply the chemical precursors for chlorophyll production. So they affect the level of plant hormones that regulate growth directly. When light activates the phytochrome signal, the transduction pathway is going to cause the cell to begin photosynthesis. In Chapter 39.2, the discussion is on plant hormones that help coordinate growth, development, and response to stimuli. So there's more discussion here on plant hormones, which again defined as chemical signals that are going to modify or control a specific physiological process within a plant. Now, plant hormones are produced in very low concentrations, but they have profound effects on the growth and development of plants. Each hormone has multiple effects, but multiple hormones may be involved in just a single process as well. The response of the plant is going to depend on how much and the concentration of the specific hormone, and often on the combination of hormones that are present, making it a more complicated process. The major plant hormones include these here. There's a great chart in your book, so be familiar with some of these major plant hormones and what their general function and effect is in a plant. So this is that table I'm referring to. It's 39.1. We're going to look at some of those hormones. So the first one, probably the most common and profoundly used hormone, is auxin. The term auxin refers to any chemical that promotes elongation of the coleoptile. Idoleic acetic acid, IAA, is a common auxin. So auxin is, again, a broader category of chemical hormones. And in this case, IAA is an example of an auxin. Auxin's produced in shoot tips and is transported actually down the stem. The transporter proteins move the hormone from the basal end of one cell, which would be the bottom end of the cell, to the apical end of the neighboring cell, which would be the top of the next cell. So according to acid growth hypothesis, auxin stimulates proton pumps in the plasma membrane, and those proton pumps lower the pH in the cell wall, activating expansins, which are enzymes that loosen the wall's fabric. So now that the cell wall's been loosened, the cellulose within that wall has loosened up, the cell can then elongate.